July 11th, 1944. It's early afternoon at Hitler's mountain retreat in Berchtesgaden. The military briefing is underway and the Führer is listening to reports from some of his officers. All pretty normal so far. One of these officers is a true German war hero. He served on pretty much every front of this long and bloody war and has suffered terrible wounds in service of the Reich. His right hand was totally destroyed, his left hand just has 2 fingers remaining, and his left eye is covered in a black eye patch. On the face of it, he's here to inform the Führer of developments with the replacement army, but he carries a secret. Stauffenberg is there to kill Adolf Hitler. I'm Astrid Deinhard. This is Spies and Ties. Hello, darlings. Now, in my episodes, as in Spartacus and Indies, you will have seen how a small group of German military men have conspired against Hitler on and off since the war began. As we have shown, the Abwehr, the German military intelligence, is at the heart of this conspiracy. Since already before the war, their leadership has played a double game to save Germany from what they believe is certain doom at the hands of Adolf Hitler. As we saw in our D-Day coverage and our series on the Vatican, they have secretly and often silently supported the Allied intelligence effort to confuse German command about the Allies' next moves. They have run operations to save German Jews from the Holocaust. At several instances, the head of the Abwehr, Wilhelm Canaris, and his deputy Hans Oster have been the driving force behind failed efforts to remove or even kill Hitler. Meanwhile, the SS has had their eyes fixed on becoming the main source of German intelligence and eliminating the Abwehr. Not because they smell a conspiracy, but as part of the usual Nazi game of thrones. As I covered in my previous episode about the end of the Abwehr, by spring 44, things came to a head between the Nazi faithfuls and the German spy chiefs. Although the Nazis do not yet know the full picture, they now know that the Abwehr has been infiltrated by double agents. Canaris and Oster have been removed, sidelined from any influence, and all of their intelligence operations moved into the SS. So now in July, when the conspiracy that began inside German espionage is close to its conclusion, it will have to continue without the 2 men who were instrumental to start it all off. The officer I spoke of in the opening is one of the men who now carries the torch forward. His full name is Claus Graf von Stauffenberg, and he is an Oberst, Colonel, in the Generalstab. He served with distinction in Poland, France, the Eastern Front, and North Africa. Those wounds were inflicted by an American fighter bomber in Tunisia in April 1943. But why is specifically this German war hero trying to kill his commander-in-chief? Well, like so many conservatives, Stauffenberg made peace with Nazism in the 1930s as Hitler rebuilt the German army and rejected the Treaty of Versailles. He praised Hitler for his success in Poland and France, but his doubts re-emerged as the war went on. Part of the reason was the horrific treatment of Ukrainian Jews and other Soviet citizens. On the other hand, although Stauffenberg may have disagreed with mass murder, he continued to believe that Germany had the right to rule Central and Eastern Europe. By the end of 1942, he had concluded that Hitler's leadership was endangering Germany's dream of empire. After suffering those serious injuries in Tunisia in early 1943, Stauffenberg spent 3 months in hospital recovering. Then, in August 1943, he took up a job in Berlin working under the Chief of the General Army office General Friedrich Olbricht. The general had been introduced to the resistance by our old friend Hans Oster of the Abwehr. Olbricht quickly inducted Stauffenberg into the resistance. Stauffenberg brought new energy and set himself up a man of action. He had little time for philosophical debates. He decided that killing Hitler was the only way forward. Fortunately, Olbricht had already started planning for a coup. See, part of Olbricht's job had been to draw up a contingency plan called Operation Valkyrie in case the Reich needed to restore security in the event of a major crisis like an uprising of civilians or foreign workers. Hitler had already approved the basic plan, which consisted of army units moving, suppressing the uprising and securing key locations. But over the summer and autumn of 43, Olbricht and Stauffenberg add some extra orders to the plan. These orders are to be issued only in the event of Hitler's death and will turn Valkyrie from a shield to protect the regime into the sword that will end the regime. Here's the declaration that will be issued. Listen up. The Führer Adolf Hitler is dead. A treacherous group of party leaders has attempted to exploit the situation by attacking our embattled soldiers from the rear in order to seize power for themselves. Valkyrie declares martial law and instructs the army to occupy government ministries, Nazi party offices, radio stations, and concentration camps. SS and party officials are to be disarmed and even shot if they resist. The resistance will then go on the air and announce the formation of a new government. It's a clever plan. The plotters know that if they just murder Hitler and seize power, they won't have the support of the party, the army, or the population. But by flipping Valkyrie on its head, blaming the death of Hitler on a few treacherous party leaders and presenting themselves as the defenders of the nation, the resistance hopes to ensure the unwitting cooperation of even the Hitler loyalists. I said it's a clever plan, but there's one major flaw. Neither Stauffenberg nor Olbricht can execute it. That's because the manpower for Operation Valkyrie comes from the Ersatzheer of the replacement army. That's a force based in military districts across the Reich, responsible for recruiting and training replacement personnel for the front and for providing guard units. Some of the commanders in the replacement army are on board with the plot, like Berlin City Command Paul von Hase. But the overall commander, Generaloberst Friedrich Fromm, is sitting on the fence. He's not a huge Hitler loyalist and is open to the idea of the coup, but doesn't want to commit himself to treason without a guarantee that it will be successful. That means that when the time comes, the resistance will have to convince Fromm to work with them or remove him from office. So, that's how the plotters plan to take power. But what about once they have power? What's their goal? Well, their ultimate aims are a bit confused, and partly that's because the resistance is not a truly unified movement. Sure, the military and civilian resistors we're talking about today have organized themselves around former Chief of Generalstab Ludwig Beck, who they want to be the new head of state. And sure, they all have a generally conservative national outlook, but they still disagree about the shape of a future German government and state, what to do with members of the Nazi regime, and what to do about the war. The war is, of course, the most pressing decision. In light of the Casablanca Declaration of January 43, any new German government would face an awful choice. give in to Allied demands of unconditional surrender and risk being branded traitors by their own people, or continue a war that they believe will end in total defeat. Some believe that unconditional surrender is the best deal they will get. But others hope they can still make a separate arrangement with the Western powers, an arrangement that would let Germany keep territory in the East and continue the war against the Soviet Union, perhaps even with Western backing. But the Western allies have made it pretty clear that they are not willing to sell the Soviet Union out like that. It's not just for geopolitical reasons either. The British and the American governments have long since lost faith in the German resistance. So, dealing with the West is still a big question mark. The other one is, who is going to kill Hitler? Stauffenberg doesn't have direct access to Hitler, and so he has to rely on volunteers. Over the winter of 43 and the spring of 44, the resistance make 3 attempts on the dictator's life. The problem is that Hitler has the luck of the devil. For the first attempt, Stauffenberg enlists the service of a major named Axel Freiherr von dem Busche. He plans to kill Hitler at an exhibition of new Wehrmacht uniforms in November 43. Unfortunately, the exhibition is cancelled at the last minute. The same thing happens in February 44, when Lieutenant Ewald Heinrich von Kleist volunteers to kill Hitler at yet another uniform exhibition. Then, Kapitän Eberhard von Breitenburg carries a concealed pistol in a briefing at the Obersalzberg in March, but at the last minute, the SS restrict the gathering to high-ranking officers only. All these failed attempts really put a downer on things. And worse is to come as spring turns to summer. On June 6, the Allies land in Normandy, as we know, and within a couple of weeks, they've established a beachhead, repelled German counterattacks, and brought vast quantities of men and vehicles ashore. Then, on June 22nd, the Soviets launch Operation Bagration and quickly start punching through the weakened line of Army Group Center. Some members of the resistance, including Stauffenberg, begin losing hope. What's the point of risking their lives and the lives of their families on this plot? Any new German government would be in an even weaker negotiation position, right? Why would the Allies give any concessions if Germany's fate is sealed? Wouldn't it be better just to wait for Germany to lose the war? Wouldn't killing Hitler be an empty and extremely dangerous gesture? So, it's left for Major General Henning von Tresckow to rally the troops. We've met him a couple of times before. He was responsible for at least 2 attempts on Hitler's life in early 43. So, when Stauffenberg suggests giving up the cause, Tresckow responds with a rousing letter. The assassination must be attempted at all costs. Even should that fail, the attempt to seize power in the capital must be undertaken. For the practical purpose no longer matters. We must prove to the world and to history that the men of the German resistance movement dared to take this decisive step and to risk their lives upon it. Compared to that, nothing else matters. If they're going to do this, the plotters have to act quickly. The Gestapo are closing in on the resistance. In June, Stauffenberg and his fellow plotters learn that members of the intellectual opposition group, the South Circle, have been sentenced to death. The security services also arrest some people connected to Stauffenberg and Olbricht. If they crack under interrogation, it's only a matter of time until the net closes. Fortunately, there is also a stroke of luck at this point. On July 1st, Stauffenberg is promoted to Chief of Staff to none other than Friedrich Fromm, commander of the replacement army. This means that Stauffenberg now has direct access to Hitler. You know what they say, if you want something done, do it yourself. That brings us to July the 11th. Stauffenberg attends the meeting at Berchtesgaden and is ready to do the deed to blow Hitler to kingdom come. But at the last minute, he decides against it. Why? Because Himmler hasn't turned up to the meeting. The conspiracists think that taking out Hitler without killing his most likely successors is pointless. After aborting the July 11th attempt, they will run into the same problem on July the 15th, when Stauffenberg flies to the Wolfschanze in Rastenburg, East Prussia. The day afterwards, Stauffenberg will meet up with the rest of the plotters at his home in Berlin. By this point, they are pretty much all in agreement with Tresckow's words that I read earlier. Even if they kill Hitler and Himmler, it's probably too late to try and extract a political agreement from the Western Allies. All that remains is to try and at least save some lives on all sides and to restore some of Germany's honor. Stauffenberg pledges that next time he will act come what may. We don't have to wait very long for the next time. Stauffenberg's next meeting with Hitler is set for July the 20th at the Wolfschanze. You can join me here on Spies and Ties to find out how this story ends. If you like to learn more about the German resistance, click here to watch our biography on Hans Oster and the Abwehr officer who did so much to build this resistance. And I will see you next time.